Welcome to Empowered to Grow, the podcast. I am your host, Hanan and Basha, the business doctor. Following our conversations with empowered women who woke up one day and consciously claimed, I am more than enough, I am worthy, I am empowered to grow. And along their empowering journey towards realizing their own potential and their quest for growth, they became a beacon of hope and guidance for others. May you also find your inner power to grow. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to our Unchartered discussions of Empowered to Grow. I'm still joined by the amazing Juls Rollnik. Thank you so much, Juls, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
For those who missed our first episode, please go back and watch it or hear it wherever you are. There were some literally gems of truth in there. Juls is an author of Secrets of a Superhost as a superhost for Airbnb. And her story started with an unfortunate and possibly scary situation where her husband was diagnosed with cancer and her realizing, I don't have a career and I don't have a means of supporting myself and my kids. God forbid if my husband couldn't survive this. And this got her to thinking, what do I do now? And I think your husband was one that said, you're going to be great as an as an Airbnb host. And this is where I wanted to discuss with you the part about financial independence. Because I was raised, and a lot of the women I'm speaking to, and this is like, I'm Egyptian, I live in Qatar, so in the Middle East, yes, it's not about having that much of financial independence. You're taken care of more or less, by your father, and then it's the husband, and your role is to be home, take care of the kids. Not, again, this is not a generalization, but I'm saying for a lot of women, that is the case. They still get all their degrees and everything, but the priority is always being home. And as you shared at the end of the episode, there are those that reach the 70 plus and then realize I don't have the financial independence, whether their husbands passed away, they've been, left, or whatever happened in the relationship, then that's when they really start struggling. For me personally, excuse me, I was raised the other way. Was since we were very young, my mom was always on the you have to be independent, just because she didn't have this steady relationship with my dad, and there was always the the fear looming over that one day she's going to find herself alone. And for me to be able to financially, I think, have coherence financially with my husband, it took about 10 to 15 years of marriage where I said, oh, okay, we can do this together. I don't have to be struggling by myself just because all I'm thinking, no, I need to support myself financially. I need to buy my own car. I need to get my own clothes, those kind of things. So from your experience, financial independence, where do we start?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, it was more a matter of I didn't have a choice. So it was, and I'm sure a lot of women, because I've thought about this over the last few years, a lot of women, do they really think about this? Do they think about, I think back, well, I didn't think about being financially independent. I was married. My husband was the main breadwinner. He was a lawyer. So I was at home raising the children, and that's how it was. And if he'd unfortunately passed away, then I would have not known any different, and I would have just gone about my business and struggled, been on struggle street. And it wasn't really, for me, it wasn't really until I had my back against the wall and I had to fight for my children that I thought about financial, becoming financially independent. But before that, I hadn't even dawned on me. And I know women, personal friends of mine in their mid-50s, who still don't have any idea. And it's interesting because I asked myself the question, why do we do that? Is it because we can't be bothered? Is it because, it's just the natural chain of events that a man, well, certainly in the olden days, my parents' days, the husband works, the woman's the homemaker. But, I think, and even to this day, it still blows my mind now that people are still unaware or they don't know anything about becoming financially independent.
Yeah.
It's and even women who are incredibly powerful in their careers can still, on a personal level, not be financially independent. Or they can be with a man who they just give everything to, and he could blow it against the wall. He could, I mean, this
Yeah.
does happen here.
Of
So
course.
I'm not generalizing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do wonder about that. And that's
And
certainly, as I said, that's my experience. Yeah.
and actually, what you're saying is very important because again, financial independence doesn't mean that we have to have the separate bank accounts and I spend this and you spend that and we don't touch each other's money. But as you said, it is finding your own, I think creating a mindset and an infrastructure where you have an income of sorts, or you're able to create an income of sorts if the time, kind of if you're stuck or something happens, the circumstances. But it starts with the awareness. And I think for me, even though I was financially independent since I was 18, and because I started working at university, okay, that's not true. I did have financial income. I wasn't independent when I was there because I still took money from my dad. But beyond that, as soon as I got married, I was financially independent from that perspective, of having an income. Of course, again, my husband was taking care of their home needs and all those kind of things. But I still was not. I didn't have the awareness and the literacy when it comes to financial wellness and financial management. So I still ended up kind of not having any money. And then I was stuck as well saying, my back is against the wall. Everything I was used to doing without going and saying, oh, I need money for this or for that, started becoming, yeah, I can't afford that anymore. What do I do now? And this had me revise and revive my relationship with money and understanding what now, how do I move around with this without backfiring on myself, without feeling unworthy because I don't have the income.
Yes, yes, because that's a good point. Because I think when you're, and again, as I keep going back to, I've seen this firsthand. I mean, I know women who are incredibly confident and they're completely blissfully unaware of what's happening in the money stakes, and they've got a lovely home, and they're thinking they're quite financially well off, and then the husband leaves. And I'm not generalizing. I'm not saying they, but and then all of a sudden everything's gone, and
Yeah,
they're so vulnerable. And especially as you get older, you become more vulnerable. If
true.
you're, I think we all can become vulnerable if we're disempowered.
Yes, that's true. Because you also
So
have the responsibilities. You possibly have children, you have, home mortgage or not. You have the expenses where it's not just about you are by yourself, like would be the case in your early 20s, and you can live on the minimum. It's the minimum does
that's
not say
right, absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, from my experience, I wanted to make sure I was never going to be in a situation where if Adam had have died, I would have, as I said earlier, I would have had to have sold the house. My kids, I just would have, what was I going to do? 44, what skills did I have? So for me, I never want to be in that situation again. So I want to be financially independent, that if anything happened to Adam down the track or if he left, I have complete control of my finances and my situation. And it's just it makes you feel so confident. So you don't feel vulnerable.
yeah.
You feel it's just you feel safe, and the security, and that's the thing that I got out of my situation with Adam when he was sick, was I never want to be in that situation. But what I want to get across to people is we don't need to wait till we've got our back against the wall,
True.
that we're, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's like, act earlier,
Yeah,
educate yourself,
sure.
and you can do this, because us as women, we are, absolutely mind blown of what we are capable of. And in fact, when I got into property, I not only realized how business savvy I
Yeah.
was, that I didn't realize I had. But as a woman, I don't I put my ego to the side and ask the stupid questions that
Yeah.
men, no offense to men, and I love you dearly, but men can have an ego and they sometimes don't like to ask the stupid questions.
Yeah.
So all these kind of things were happening to me that were like, wow, and like property, for example, and that's my sort of lane. I realized when I got into that, wow, I'm not bad at this.
Hmm.
And it's just such a great feeling. And that's what I really want to get across to women, that, this is so important for
That's true.
themselves and their future, and just not only for their future, for their family, but for themselves.
That's true. That's
Because you
true.
don't want to be vulnerable. You don't want to be um, invisible, and nobody knows what's around the corner. Believe you me, none of us know what's around the corner.
Yeah. And as you said, I mean, we also mentioned this in the first part of our discussion, was it's small steps. Yes, if you
Yes.
don't have the bandwidth or the capacity or the capabilities at this point in time, then you most probably who would also have an allowance. And out of that allowance, then something like 10% saving on the side is where you start. Then that becomes seed money. And the seed money, you can think of it in terms of an investment into a knowledge or a business that you are capable of creating, or into a savings account that's kind of, the rainy day account or something. I know that for me, as you had done with the real estate part and the Airbnb part, you went out and you sought the knowledge. And for me, it was seeking the knowledge about amending my relationship with money. T. Harv Eker was one of the people that kind of blew my mind. He's got a book called The Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, and it was just amazing because he just kind of really puts in the smallest steps. Even if you've got $100, how do you break up the $100 and still have some left for yourself, and still have some to enjoy, and kind of give yourself a treat with? And what do you put in terms of percentages to your everyday lives, in managing your finances, so they're also fitting to your lifestyle, or sorry, the other way around, managing your lifestyle to fit your finances, and then growing with them, but still ensuring that you've always got the buffers, and you've always got the accounts, the different, even I think it was even recommending you have 3 or 4 separate bank accounts, which possibly is not really feasible for a lot of people, but
Yeah.
that mindset at least of having those. Um,
Yeah.
I want to bring back, like, connect the financial independence with a point that we also brought up in our first discussion, and that was about the feelings of self-worthiness. So from your perspective, is it about that if we're not financially independent, we don't feel the feelings of self-worthiness, or because um sometimes I know that personally I speak of this a lot, of my feelings of not good enough, and I called it, I penned it a pandemic before the pandemic, just because I was having all these conversations. As you said, your experience was, I didn't know anything about real estate, I didn't know anything about Airbnb, what do I have to offer? And yet you're a super host. So
Mm.
is this related? And how do your experience of how do you extract yourself from this mindset of I'm not worthy, to heck, I'm doing an amazing job over here, I can do more?
Yeah, look, it's interesting because I think, for me, the self-worthiness was from my childhood. I mean, my father was an alcoholic, and I think when you're a child of an addict, you don't have a lot of self-esteem because that parent will generally take that from you. So I kind of started out at a base where I didn't have a lot of self-esteem. But in saying that, I'm one of 6 children, and some of my siblings have incredible self-esteem. So
Mhm.
for me, my self-worth wasn't that great to begin with, and it didn't matter. And to be honest, even now, I still have to check in, because it's not like you start to become financially empowered or independent and those feelings go. It's For me, I've always had to do the work.
Mhm.
I'm always doing the work. So for me, it was validation, because people would always say stuff to me like, "Oh, you're great, Jules. You're amazing." It wouldn't matter what I look like, or if I, was looking $1 million. I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
And even as I went along with the Airbnb and the property and all that, there was times of still the not feeling worthy, or it just didn't automatically. Oh, what it did give me was security, and yes, validation in that, oh, my skills, like my fabulous communication skills, and people were validating me, saying you make me feel fantastic and all that. But with regards to, like, certainly for me, the self-worth, I still have to work on that every day. So for me, and because people say to me, oh, you've got a beautiful husband, been married for 25 years, and it's been a lot of work there, but you've got lovely children, and you've got a lovely house, and you've got this and that. And that's great. And I have, and it's been a lot of work, but it is still a lot of work with my self-worth. So that, I think, is really important for people to understand, that just because you can create this and it can be wonderful, and you've still got to get to the root of that's going to follow you wherever you go. It doesn't matter if you're, the richest person on the planet. So I think that's really important. But yeah, for me, I think the self-worth is in the doing and what I've created, and to step back because I've done a lot of the hard work. And I do go back to it. A funny thing, Adam used to always say to me, there's no way but the hard way. He's a Capricorn, by the way. And I'd be like, don't say that. What do you mean? I can't take it. This is when I was not as strong as I am now, even though it was, it's funny because it was always there. I just
Yeah,
hadn't tapped into it.
exactly.
And now it's funny because, I will say to, my son Alec at times, Alec, there's no way but the hard way. And I actually say to myself, well, really, it's still working every day. Still, even when you conquer something, okay, the next thing it's still going to come at you, but it's that, still working at it. And as I said, for me, I'll probably, till the day I check out of this planet, I'll still be, checking in with the self-worth and stuff. But, yeah.
That's great. And yes, I completely agree. It is work in progress. I know there are days where I start questioning myself and saying, yeah, right, you deserve this, or you're not putting in the work, or whatever it is. And I'm always criticizing, not always, but I've improved a lot there. But as you said, it's a work in progress in terms of you have to be aware and you have to keep working on it to get out of the pits faster than usual. The pits will happen, the pitfalls will happen.
And they
You
always will. They always will. And we're humans. I think we don't realize half the time that we are human beings,
Yep. We're
and
not super beings.
we're not. And if we were perfect, well, our work would be done on this planet.
That's true. That's true. Well, you brought up Capricorn, and I can't let you go without tapping into the astrology part.
Yes,
Your
the
previous life
astrology.
and your astrology. Um, I okay, I can go into a lot of discussion. I think this could be a separate discussion, but let's bring it from the astrology perspective. Is there a connection, or are there certain elements that empower us financially when it comes to astrology?
Oh, you've got me there. This is one of those questions. Where do I go? Look, yes, there is, I think, but there's lots of elements that go into. I can't answer that specifically because there are a number of elements that go
Different
into,
parameters. Yeah. Okay.
yes, different house systems, and I could go on and on, but I'd lose your viewers immediately. But yes, there can be certain signs that can sort of predict if you're how you are with your finances, and how you handle your finances, and also awareness, because everything in life is about awareness. So certainly when I used to see clients and we talk about the finances, whether it's their finances or their partnership with finances, if they're a bit challenged in that area, I would sort of highlight to them what their challenges are and guide them in that way. But again, it's about the awareness. So
Yeah.
some people might have a chart that's got a fantastic Saturn and a wonderful Jupiter, and and that's great. And then somebody else mightn't have a great Saturn and mightn't have a great Jupiter. But there's ways and means of working with that. sometimes you have to do things in an alternative way. But that's quite an in-depth.
And but still, this answer is, I love it because it's also an example of how we should not just take circumstances or facts. I mean, again, I'm a Taurus, so I was born in May. It's a fact. Do I have most of the Taurus traits? Most probably. But if I just believe that that is the story, is my story, and I can't change some of the negative characteristics that are that come with the sign, then that again is disempowering. And as you said, even when it comes to the finances or anything else related to who we are as individuals when we're born, our circumstances, our families, our geographies, whatever culture we're in, then this is our actually empowering way of looking at it, is seeing where can I improve and how can I improve. So I'm not just following the story.
Absolutely. And I like to say to people, I'm a Gemini. So I say to people, I'm part of the Gemini tribe. So if I'm another Gemini, there'll be something, some little things that, oh yes, we like to talk and we're like Peter Pan, and there's certain characteristics, but that's just like you're part of the family tribe. And you're a Taurus, Hanan. So you're part of the Taurus tribe, but that's where the buck stops.
Yeah.
So there's so many other layers to that. So yes, I just had to add that little bit in.
Yes,
Don't get me
please.
started
Thank
on
you.
astrology, because I could just talk
Exactly.
and talk about it forever. And I'm actually I do medieval astrology, which is old, ancient, traditional astrology too, by the
Wow.
way. Mm.
Okay. We should have started with that. But again, that's
Oh,
another discussion.
yes,
That's another episode.
yes.
Jules, I'm going to ask you one last question, and I want to thank you for your time and for sharing all your energy and knowledge with us. From as a superhost, as an Airbnb superhost, which is a service-based business, what would be 3 lessons or advice that you would give to someone who's thinking about it, who's just starting up, who doesn't have the faith that they can create something because they just don't know enough about this topic?
Well, first thing I would do is educate myself. You educate, do as much research as you can to begin with. Educate yourself, as in go and do some courses. There's so many cheap courses out there, but just get yourself in a position where and this is a time, if you're going to do Airbnb, you know how some things you can do and you can just sit there and research and research, and it's like you just have to do now.
Yeah.
But with Airbnb, that's the first thing I would do. I would research, I would do a little course if I could. Secondly, communication is all. You need to have great communication with your guests.
Mhm.
And often people think communication has happened and it hasn't. But communication is absolutely paramount. So you need to be able to respond to, for example, when somebody sends you a request to book, get straight onto it. You want to
Mm.
reply to that person straight away. So this is really important. And one of my great skills was that I'm an excellent communicator. And you know what? It's not that difficult.
Yep.
It's not that difficult. It's just responding to people, communicating with immediacy. So
Mhm.
that's really important. And if there's issues, any issues at all with your guests, and I say this across the board with clients in general, you get back to them immediately, and you don't say, oh, what's the problem, this person's annoying me. You say to that guest each and every time, what's the solution, how can I help you, how can I make it better? By you just saying, how can I make it better, they're
Yeah.
going to think, oh, wow, oh, she actually cares.
Yeah.
And my last tip, which is absolutely, I call it the 3 pillars. This
Yeah.
is really, 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 really important. You want to invest before, when you start out in your Airbnb, there's 2 things that people are going to do. Generally, they're going to sleep at your Airbnb. So that's a given. And
Yeah.
then 9 times out of 10 going to have a shower. So
Mhm.
invest, invest, invest. The 3 pillars. Invest in a decent mattress. You don't have to
Mhm.
spend a fortune, but something that's good quality, or
Yeah.
just, that's a decent mattress, nice linen. You don't have to spend a fortune, and even if you spend a little bit more initially, they will last you a long
Of
time.
course. Yeah.
So you want to have not, because nothing worse than getting in a bed with horrible sheets and crappy pillows. Invest, oh my God, pillows.
Yes,
This
please.
is real. These little things you will get 5-star reviews each and every time.
Yeah.
And so even towels, for example, just get some nice half decent towels. And lastly, the last pillar is the heating and air conditioning. Please make sure you have half decent air conditioning and heating, because mark my words, if people are uncomfortable, they will give you a bad review or they will leave.
Yeah. That's
So those 3 pillars are probably,
I love that.
you're on a winner each and every time.
And they're very applicable to any service-based business. Is the
That's
first one
right.
is educate yourself on the business and the segments and the trends and everything you're there and your customers. Number 2 would be to communicate effectively and promptly. And number 3 is to make sure to be customer centric. What does my customer need and how can I fulfill those needs? So thank you for that. That's been amazing.
That's my pleasure. And you know where to find me if you need to ask any questions. I think you'll have my email address. Please reach out anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Juls Rollnik, all the way from Australia, as a super host for Airbnb. It has been an absolute pleasure having this discussion with you.
It has. Thank you, Hanan. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And as always, it's about small steps. It's about financial literacy that leads to financial management, that leads to financial independence, or at least lack of dependence, even if not independence completely. So your back is not against the wall. And then beyond that, taking those small steps to be able to, if you are thinking of a service-based business and you know that that's part of your core competencies, or even if you don't know it and you've been hearing it enough, start believing it and start taking those steps. You will not regret it. It's not going to be easy, but it could be a lot of fun, and definitely it could be a lot of prosperity for you and your family. As always, wishing you love, abundance, and prosperity, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the Empowered to Grow podcast. For further engagement with a tribe of empowered women, join my Facebook group, Empowered to Grow, or visit my website, www.hananulbasha.com. I'll catch you on the next episode, and until then, know that empowered you empowers others. Love, abundance, and prosperity to you all.